Way back when I was a mom of littles, I quit the job that I loved to stay home with the kids. I would not have said it this way, but one of my strategies to make life work on a single income was just to keep my own needs small. And this sort of worked, at least I'm talking about like in the area of clothing, until I realized that there's an art and a science to how to dress. Then I wanted to be able to express myself. So back in those days, the reigning Christian personal finance guru was Larry Burkett. I went to figure out what he had to say about budgeting for clothes. And he gave a reasonable percentage, along with a statement that in no circumstances should this be less than $10 a month per person. That's about $25 in today's dollars. That's when I discovered that having an actual budget with numbers is a more empowering way to ensure I'm not over or underspending on clothes than just pretending I don't need anything. You know the stereotype. Most style advice assumes closets overflowing with clothes that still have tags on them. Thousands of dollars of impulse purchases gathering dust. But when I ran a poll on LinkedIn a few years ago, 86% of the people who responded said they don't buy enough clothes and that they wear their clothes too long. It was a smallish poll, but the numbers got my attention. Then I started asking around people that I know. I brought this question up in casual networking conversations with other women in business. Easily, half of them budget exactly $0 for their own clothes. Zero. Now, you can maybe do that for a year here and there, but it's not sustainable strategy. I mean, I've heard of a year of fasting from buying anything, and that's fair if you have a lot. But I wonder if when people think about buying clothes, they're thinking somehow of buying clothes that they don't need. And then when they think about buying things that they need, like replacing a staple that has a hole in it, uh, a staple to their wardrobe item, not an actual staple. In their mind, that money sort of comes out of a different bucket somehow. Why? I think generational theory helps to explain this a little bit. So I'm Rebecca Milky, and as your visual identity guide, I take you on a journey of self-discovery so you can align your inner and outer self, show up confidently, and contribute your gifts to the world. As your first step to self-discovery, I invite you to download my free guide, Discover Your Style DNA, a guide to seasonal energy and personality colors. You can find the link in the show description or at my website, signaturestylesystems.com. So, what is generational theory? I'm specifically talking about the work of William Strauss and Neil Howe, and it proposes that history moves in cycles called saecula, each about 80 to 90 years long. So they've gone back to, I think, the 14 and 1500s and mapped out these similar patterns. With each saeculum, four generational archetypes emerge and they go in order: prophet, nomad, hero, and artist. Each of these generations has a different relationship with institutions, authority, and cultural expectations. And that's based on how old they were when different events like crises happened in their saeculum. So right now, we're clearly in a crisis moment at the turn of a saeculum in what Strauss and Howe call a fourth turning or crisis era. If you want to learn more about this framework, just look up Strauss and Howe generational theory, and it explains a lot about the cultural moment we're living in. For today, I want to focus on how each generation's archetype shaped their relationship with wardrobe spending. So the artist generations are in the people who are currently alive. the oldest and the youngest. So Gen Z and the silent generation. Artist generations come of age during crisis eras. So, like the silent generation would have come of age during like World War II and the events leading up to that, probably the Depression. Um, and then they were in their youth during the high eras. So, like, my mom was born in 1942, and then she was, a teenager in the 50s, which looked like that was a high era. So they have more freedom to be playful and experimental. And then for the youngest people right now, I think that's great. Permission, give yourself permission to have fun with your wardrobe, to experiment, to play. That's actually really appropriate for this stage of life. Um, Baby boomers are the prophet generation, used to being able to speak into existence anything that their will, speak their will into existence with all the protests and whatnot. Born between 1943 and 1960, they're the idealist generation that questioned everything. And when it came to spending, they rejected the Depression era's extreme thrift and went after post-war consumer abundance. Here's the pattern I've noticed. Many boomers spent on clothes, but without intentional strategy. They felt good about it as long as it was a good deal. And I kind of wonder if maybe that's where that stereotype came from of people with too many clothes in their closet. Uh, yeah, that's an interesting question. Anyway, I had a conversation recently with someone about real numbers for a clothing budget. This is like a regular person who can afford normal things, going out for coffee or the occasional vacation, but nothing extravagant. I asked her what her budget was for clothes, and she didn't really know and guessed maybe about $500. So I think that's unrealistic because that was what I was spending 20 years ago when I started blogging and I was tracking it. And I was shopping strictly at thrift stores with the, occasional new shoes that were, you know, like my Chacos or whatever. Okay, so on to Gen X. That's my generation. It's the nomad archetype, born between 1961 and 1981. And we are considered self-reliant, latchkey generation, and we learned not to ask for much. We learned to keep our needs small. And then Dave Ramsey came along and confirmed that message by literally erasing the clothing line item from his every dollar budget categories. No wonder we're confused. That's the Gen X blind spot. We were taught, or we picked up the message, that keeping our needs small was a virtue, and then we applied that to our wardrobes. Then millennials, they're the hero generation. So they have super high standards, born between 1982 and 2004, facing economic instability that previous generations didn't, with student loan debt, housing costs, and all the economic challenges we have right now. They inherited the keep your needs small message, but also added more layers: ethical consumption, zero waste, who's making that garment, and then there's social media comparison culture. So it's no wonder half the women I talk to budget zero for their wardrobes. There's been, or whether it's systematically taught or just picked up from what's going on around us, generation after generation believing that investing in our appearance is inappropriate, indulgent, or just impossible, even though it's legally required. for us to be dressed. So, what are actual realistic budget numbers? Here's what I found that works. I think $100 per month is a reasonable low end, and I've, you know, not like bottom of the barrel low end, just reasonable. That's what I budget, and I'm I keep a fairly small wardrobe. I'm skilled at finding good prices. I know exactly what works for me, so I don't make expensive mistakes, and a lot of times I don't need very much going into the new season because I'm able to carry things over. But I've also talked to other people who are in that budget range. I also know middle income people who budget like $200 a month, and I think that's also reasonable. It doesn't mean extravagance, it just means they don't have to spend as much time searching for good prices. If they find something that fits well, they can buy that right then without settling for close enough or continuing to look. So these are sustainable numbers that allow you to replace worn out items, add something as your life changes, and then build a wardrobe that actually serves you. But $0 a year is probably not a good long-term strategy because things wear out and our bodies change, things shrink, or whatever life circumstances change. Most people think budgeting for clothes is about controlling overspending, but actually, generational theory reveals how we've been taught to underinvest. And here's something else I want you to know. Understanding how to invest in your wardrobe strategically is a learnable skill. When when I first started training with Carla Mathis, she didn't like almost anything I wore, and that was humbling. But by the time I took my advanced training, I had learned the principles, and I showed up to a meeting with her, and I had to have my outfits critiqued every day, and she liked them all. So you can learn this too. It's not about being born knowing what to wear. It's about understanding artistic principles like color theory, line, proportion, scale, and connecting those ideas to your personality and to your life. And that's what I teach. That's what I teach. That's what I'm here to help you with. Um, so here's what I want you to take away from this episode. Your struggle with wardrobe budgeting isn't a personal failing, it's a generational pattern. But you can break the pattern. You can recognize if you absorbed an inappropriate message about spending on your appearance, and you can question whether that message is actually serving you. You can create a realistic budget with actual numbers that allows you to have some choices about what you buy, how you show up. Most people think budgeting for clothes is about controlling overspending, but actually, it's about investing. Here's something simple you can do this week. This week, I want you to do some math. Think through a typical year and write down what you think you might need to buy for yourself. Do you need a pair of snow boots? It's going to snow. Not soon, I don't think, here, but maybe you need a pair of jeans or a couple of t-shirts. Whatever makes sense for your life, then estimate like how much are you willing to spend on that type of an item? Um, yeah, what's normal? I think last year I knew I needed a pair of or I wanted a pair of gray trousers. I found a pair that fit me really well, and they were, I think, $77. That seemed like a really super high price, but they were on clearance and they were a quality garment. And I knew that it would go with everything and that I needed it. And that actually is not an unreasonable price for a well-made pair of trousers. So just as an example, then multiply and then add it all up. And how does that compare with what you think you need uh, or what you think your budget should be or how much you should spend? It's not about guilt. This is just about getting honest about what you actually need so you can plan for it. Thanks for being here for the Signature Style Systems podcast. Have fun being you, and I will meet you back here again real soon.